Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to Double9Radio. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks. Thank you very much for inviting me to the radio. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I love that. It just shows how international you are.
Exactly. Because you never know. We have to include everyone because it could be evening, it could be morning, it could be afternoon. So we have to include everyone because we appreciate everyone and we love everyone listening to us this evening or afternoon or morning. Welcome to the show again, and thank you for taking time out to come.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great honor to be on your show.
Fantastic. But I'm sure my listeners are wondering, who is this amazing guy with a soft-spoken voice? He seems very humble as well. Can you tell us, who do we have on the show this evening?
My name is Kabalano. I am just a young African dreamer, young African visionary, young African problem solver. I'm the type who just sees all these opportunities and the problems and challenges we have on our continent. So I'm just excited to be living in this age and on this continent at this exact time and this exact moment.
Amazing. So you're the right man to talk to when we're talking about everything Africa or opportunities that could be, be present in Africa, talking about business and making money.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, you're in the right place. We got the right guy for you this evening. Make sure you're taking notes and make sure you do call in as well or send in your questions as we go ahead. Okay, so I'm going to call you Mr. K because I think I like K. Or maybe I call your full name Kabalano. Can I pronounce it properly? Kabalano.
It's actually, Kabalano Tabang Rampa.
Oh
so it gets longer.
Oh my gosh. I think I'll just stick with Kabalano this evening because I might not. Yes, I'll just stick with Kabalano. Fantastic.
No problem.
You're welcome. Okay, so if anyone's asking, who is Kabalano? What would you say to them?
I'd probably say a dreamer, a doer, a builder, a learner. I always say my journey is just lifelong learning. Because if you stop learning, you stop growing and you're not growing, you're dead. So I learn on a daily basis, but then we don't just learn to learn, we learn to solve problems. So that's why it's dreamer, doer, builder, learner, and I guess problem solver at the end of it. I do it both in the long term and the short term because as I say, we live in a continent that's riddled with problems and challenges, but then solving these problems just, keep me inspired and keep me going on a daily basis.
I mean, that's great to know. I mean, you mentioned problem solver, someone who provides solutions to problems. And also you highlighted the fact, which is the reality, that yes, there's quite a number of a lot of problems within the African continent. But, in the same vein, there's problems and there's opportunities. Problems bring opportunity as well. Just maybe change of the mindset, I think, for people who reside within the African continent, because I love Africa. Africa is amazing. Africa is beautiful, and I do wish things do fall into place, and individuals like yourself doing great things within Africa is such a refreshing thing to see.
Definitely. I believe the potential is in the problems because, as you said, the opportunities are there and it's a beautiful place. And the problems just show how much potential it has. Because if it didn't have the potential, then we wouldn't be facing these challenges.
Yeah, you're quite right. Okay, you're a problem solver. You find solutions to things. But, I mean, is there anything else that inspires you as an individual?
Yeah, quite a lot. I think what really inspires me is seeing communities, seeing nations, seeing continents just go from like challenge to challenge to victory, and just how you get leaders who are at the forefront of this and they're persistent and they're resilient and they bounce back every time. I think that's an inspiration for me. Resilience that we see and persistence. And I mean, we've seen it the whole world through, and we're still seeing it. And you see the human spirit and how it can really, really bounce back to survival. I think that for me is just the overall inspiration that keeps us going like on a daily basis.
Amazing. That resilient spirit, you keep going and renewing that energy as you on a daily basis. I think you're quite right because, as you mentioned as well, humanity does go through a lot of challenges, but the resilience within the human race, keeps giving it that edge to win all battles as well. I mean, what does success mean to you, Kabalano, I should say?
I think like success. Growing up, success is obviously, hitting that milestone or achieving that objective or that goal. But then, when you get older, you see that success is really in the impact and the change that you do around you, no matter how small, no matter how large. And that for me has been the success that really, really drives me, just the changing people's lives, changing people's welfare and not really just, charity or making them better by offering them something, but equipping communities, equipping people through the work that we do. It really, really is the success for us, because then once you see the beauty of being able to empower people, empower companies, empower communities, and then look at them do stuff for themselves and consistently go on a positive trajectory, just really, really then, does then drive it home that but you really, really have achieved success in what you're doing. That for me is what success is now.
Amazing. That's quite good, because with that you can never get tired of being successful. You can never get bored of being successful, because you're giving individuals opportunities, you're providing opportunities, and you're seeing the impact within communities as well. I think that's quite a remarkable way to actually look at that. I mean, you mentioned about what you do. I want to get into what you do as well as we go through this fantastic interview today. But I want to know, before you actually decided to take on, the role that you do now, the role, probably I can describe it as a businessman, a business development expert as well. Before you actually took on that role, what did you do in the earlier part of your career?
So I was really fortunate enough, growing up in a country like Botswana. The government has this thing where if you do well in your high school, they give you a full life scholarship, and like it's a full life scholarship to go abroad, to go to a university, that you're accepted in. And I was blessed enough to be able to go to a university in Johannesburg, South Africa. Now, the country I'm from is called Botswana, which is pretty small, population of now a bit over 2 million. And it's right next to, the most industrialized nation on the continent, which is South Africa. So think of maybe going from Bristol to London, or even worse, maybe going from Isle of Man to London.
Yeah.
And you get inspired. You get inspired. You see that the world is much larger than where you're from, and so I studied a Bachelor of Commerce, Commerce and Finance degree, first degree at the University of Wits. That's the University of Witwatersrand, which is Afrikaans.
Yeah.
This is in Johannesburg, South Africa, and studying there as a hobby, I used to DJ. I actually started DJing in high school in Matric, because that's what I did. And Matric is basically like your A levels or A levels that side, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and as a hobby, DJing, really, really showed us how you can use your creativity, your passion, to make a living. To make money. And when we were in school, I remember there was some time when I really had to, stop my gigs, because I was gigging from like Thursday to Sunday. And then Monday, you're in class and, you're still tired. Tuesday, you're just recovering. Wednesday, that's when you're okay. Then Thursday, it starts all over again.
I know.
And
you get carried away.
Yeah. Definitely. But then, so I eased up on the gigging, and what I did instead was then took a leadership role in the DJ Society, which was just basically a community of DJs and producers in the university, and that was a great experience, because then it teaches you leadership, it teaches you to manage people, to manage organizations that are meant to empower communities, and the best thing that happened that time was then I was able to then progress into what they call the Student Representative Council But this was the subcommittee, not the main committee
Okay.
of the university. Now, the reason this is a big thing is because this university is the one that, it's one of the largest and most influential universities in South Africa. So this is the one that produces, leaders. I mean, people who were in that same council with are in the parliament right now as we speak. So it was quite a great leadership experience to be able to learn from our peers, to learn from people older than us.
Amazing.
And yeah, that was my first degree. But after that, I then went and worked for a financial services firm for quite some time. But then I think the rigidity of it just really didn't work for me. And I remember when I got back to Botswana, I remember then talking to some other fellow DJ who was telling me that one of the private radio stations in Botswana at that time had an opening in sales and marketing, and I remember saying, yeah, I want to apply for that. And I really just want to apply for that because it would be a different environment. I wouldn't be in the DJ section, but it would be a radio station, and it would be nice to be in such an environment. And that's why I was very happy to take the opportunity to come on radio.
Okay.
But yeah. Yeah, so I remember, telling my parents that I want to leave the job, and my salary was going to be cut by half, because obviously, it's not a financial services firm, it's a media firm, and I was going from a financial risk management position to a sales and marketing position, which was almost entry level. But I did it, I took the leap, and I think that's where, my inspiration came out, because the inspiration to, serve communities, serve people, to become something much bigger than yourself. Because this private radio station was founded by people who are just like me, who were just young Africans, young Botswana, who and the similar trajectory, who after high school got good results, went to university in South Africa. The guys actually went to UCT, the University of Cape Town, and the founder actually didn't finish his degree. He saw this, ad in the paper and newspaper on that side about the government issuing out licenses for radio stations, and he jumped on it. He told some of the guys there that he's going, and this was, I think, 1998.
Wow.
Now 21 years later, it's a huge conglomerate. They went from a small private radio station to property, to TV stations, to radio stations out of the country, on the continent, to it's a whole media conglomerate, and it all started from a vision. And I think, seeing this firsthand and seeing how, they got the day-to-day business, and seeing what the drive and the zeal was to actually get this done, it was the true inspiration for me to say that, this life is bigger than the sum of the past that you want to have, or life is bigger than just, you going to school and, working and making a good life for you and your family.
Yeah.
It's much bigger than that.
Amazing. I'm inspired. I'm inspired by that story. I'm sure the team are listening and thinking, oh my gosh, yes, this is a vision. This is a vision. So we need to actualize this vision as well, and this is a vision of bringing on Africa as one, promoting Africans together.
Definitely.
and building from that as well. I mean, it's amazing the way you've given us a bit of an insight into your career progression, how you started off, going to university as well, and getting to that financial company, and also because of your passion, you felt of music. You didn't want to really be on the music side, but you want to be around it and work at that radio station, and eventually, I think it set you on the path of which you are now.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And it's always weird because then, in the best parts or the best opportunities are always, as they say, opportunities are dressed as work clothes. It's always the paths with the most resistance, or the paths, that are least taken by people, the non-conventional paths that actually lead to greatness. So, I hope this is a testament to, people listening out there. If there's the challenge that you're going through, if there's a path that, you want to take and you're not sure about it, but you feel in your gut that this is what you should be doing, this is your purpose, yeah, go for it, don't hesitate.
Exactly. Go for it. Never hesitate, because you never know because you don't want to be living in regret as well. I mean, I understand you speak multiple languages as well. I was intrigued. How many languages do you speak?
Yeah, I wish I spoke more, to be honest.
Wow.
I wish I spoke more. Well, I speak English, obviously, Setswana, which is my native language here. A bit of Sesotho, which is where my grandmother's from. I speak Mandarin. I lived in China from 2010 up until 2019. So yeah, that was quite a long time.
Yeah,
and,
that was a long time.
And you know, I'm trying to learn French because, you know, we are getting into francophone markets. And, you know, I think it's important to be able to immerse yourself and, you know, speak the same language and, you know, and learn the same culture for the market that you're definitely doing business in and working in.
Amazing. So now tell us about what you currently do now. You know, what is your line of business? What do you do at present?
Funny thing is, a friend of mine was asking me that, like an old high school friend was asking me that 2 days ago, you know, and I just said to her, yeah, I mean, we eat problems for lunch. That's what we do.
We eat problems for lunch. Amazing.
Well, I'm an international trade economist by profession.
Okay.
And I'm actually embarking on my international trade economics PhD, which I've been trying to, you know, finish for the past 3-4 years, but because of work, it's been kind of hectic to juggle it, but it's getting better. So what we do is we run a firm called NADRA Global Facilitators, and we just basically are an end-to-end supply chain firm that assists African companies, SMEs, individuals, organizations get capital equipment, get machinery, get products, get prototypes from anywhere around the world up to their destination, you know, easier, better, faster, at worldwide competitive pricing. This is a gap and this is a need that, you know, the African continent at large has for development to go through, development to keep on getting more and more rapid. You need to have access to a lot of products. You need to have access to manufacturing machinery. You need to have access to prototypes. You need to have access to, you know, the best that you can at the most competitive rates at in the easiest and fastest time possible. And that's what we do. And needless to say, I mean, that's an uphill battle. So, you know, you get obstacles left, right, and center on a daily basis. But, you know, we've gotten so efficient in what we do. We're trying to turn it into a science. And I think because of the challenges, even the team that we're with is a young team, and you know, they enjoy themselves on a daily basis because, you know, you don't know what you're gonna come across. You don't know what challenge or obstacle you're gonna come across. Fantastic. Especially now in the era of the pandemic, and I'm sure you know how logistics have been worldwide.
Yeah. I mean, it's been quite challenging, you know, and you know, some countries have been affected more than others, and you know, some are still reeling in the effects of the pandemic as well. You know, okay, let's talk about the, you know, because we earlier on the show we mentioned about, you know, the solutions or the opportunities in Africa. You know, that I think there's vast amounts of opportunities available in Africa. I mean, from your point of view, of someone who is well vast in, you know, in the African economics and African, should I say, countries, as the, you know, what opportunities would you say are available, you know, in Africa, you know, and what are the challenges you see with doing business in Africa as well?
Yeah, I think, you know, with opportunities, man, it's just huge. I mean, we could talk the whole night on opportunities. I mean, almost every sector, every industry you can think of. There's still huge opportunity in Africa because no sector is saturated. Sectors are still, industries are still at the infinite stage. Countries are still, you know, looking for solutions. So what I'll just probably say at this point is that, you know, look for the problems, look for the challenges, and solve them. And those are the opportunities that you'll find. Whatever sector you're in, whatever industry you're in, whatever sub sector or sub industry or skill that you have, you know, find those challenges and find those problems on whatever country or city or town in Africa and solve them, and it'll just have a ripple effect. When and that's the beauty about solving problems. Solutions are exponential because then you form a model, and that model can be replicated across markets, and it could help a lot of people. And that's the irony of it. The challenges and the problems are the opportunities. So that's how we like to look at it. The opportunities in solving that problem, solving that challenge. So, I don't even want to name just one industry because it's lost. Tech, agriculture, medicine, healthcare, services, financial services. It's just like mining. It's just it's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. When people talk about opportunities, and I recognize, yes, there's loads of opportunities in Africa. Quite amazing opportunities that could, be really big kind of thing. But is it a smoke screen where people say, there's a lot of challenges doing businesses in Africa, but sometimes because you still see some industries thriving very well, in Africa, in different parts of Africa as well. But is it like a smoke screen where people say, what, it's challenging doing business in Africa, it's very tough? I mean, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I kind of partly agree with that. I think it's a smokescreen because I don't see where you're gonna go on Earth where there are no challenges. I haven't heard of any utopia on Earth, so the challenge is everywhere. But having said that, the same people saying it's challenging are the same people who see Africa rising on every day, going higher and higher and developing. And it just shows that, even with the challenges there, people are still making them on a daily basis. People are still finding ways. People are still finding solutions. People are still finding, new innovative ways of doing business, of getting over those obstacles. So yeah, I think in the long run, it definitely is a smoke screen. Because if you're gonna buy that there are challenges and leave that market, somebody's gonna do it. Somebody's gonna and that's an ethos that we always have at the office. That if we don't solve these problems, if we don't go through these obstacles, if we don't find solutions, somebody's gonna do it. There's always somebody in Africa working 2 times, 3 times harder than you think you're working, to get it solved. So that should keep you going.
And the reason I say smoke screens because you see some great innovations coming out of Africa as well, and some other foreign individuals within Africa who seem to be thriving very well. But in the media and in most news you hear, it's difficult to do business in Africa. It's quite challenging. And as you mentioned, there's nowhere, everywhere in the world is challenging. You just have to find the solution to ensure that challenge does not exist. Now I talk about, there's another aspect of, doing business in Africa where people talk about really, which is the economic development. Because when we talk about economic development, we're talking about things that support economic development. We talk about things like infrastructure, the basis of infrastructure. South Africa, you mentioned, I think is one of the most advanced African countries who have seen a great deal in investment within its infrastructure. We're talking about, things as basic as roads, hospitals, electricity, for instance. But we do have certain African countries who lack this basic, type of infrastructure development. From your point of view, why is this happening within, the continent?
I think generally on the continent as a whole, and before I generalize, I have to say, Africa is one of the most diverse places on earth. The cultures are so diverse, the ways of doing business, the language, the histories are diverse. You get the same people, same people who speak the same language, who have the same culture, but have different histories. And that in itself is sets them apart and just poses diversity. And with diversity, you can either take it as a positive aspect or as a negative aspect. I think as Africa, we've really taken it as a negative aspect, and the diversity has really, really fragmented the continent, and worst of all, probably made a leadership vacuum, because the more fragmented we are, the the less of a leadership role we can, the less of a leadership figure we can look at, and I think that is fundamentally one of the big challenges that we as a continent need to address, because the leadership vacuum is huge, and leadership vacuum is not. And when I say leadership vacuum, I don't mean like just leaders, just the perception of the oneness of a people, or the oneness of a continent.
Fantastic.
and just how we don't have that unison of looking at the future and driving with one trajectory.
Why don't we have an African Union?
I think, well, there's obviously a lot of factors, a lot of factors, but I always say we always need to start with ourselves. We always need to look inward. There's a lot of people who could play the blame game and pass it around, but the buck stops at us. We don't have it because we haven't really pushed ourselves to say we have to start. It has to start with us. It has to start with us. Before we do anything, it has to start with our mindset change and our paradigm shift to say, but nobody else is going to do it if not us. We can start, we can sit the whole day and start mentioning other factors, internal, external, and stuff like that. But they're all just going to boil down to, the individual, and where the individual, and we see this in different cultures and different continents, where they really, really emphasize on starting with the individual, and once it's from the inside out, it becomes easier, because then now everybody is on the same page on them working on themselves first, and then trying to then change others. So and there was a quote that I saw today that really, really inspired me, where it said, when you love something, you change for it, and when you change, everything around you changes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, what you're saying is totally right. To bring the change, love yourself, and everything around you will change as well. And you talk about the leadership.
Definitely.
You talk about the vacuum of leadership within, not just leadership within the country, but as Africa as a whole, because and also you talk about the the differences which is being recognized and stopping or hindering that collaboration which is needed, because we talk about an African Union, and the reason I mentioned that, I just thought about the European Union, who come together and trade as one. Imagine Africa coming together and trading as one. We wouldn't have some certain unfair pricing on some certain products. We see that come out of Africa, but I mean, hopefully, there'll be a vision or visionary that could make that happen. Maybe one like yourself. What can I say? But okay. But you talked about you lived in China. You lived in China for, I think, for about 9 years. You mentioned about from 2010 to about 2019, which comes to about 9 years.
Yeah.
While you were there, what was your experience like? While you're living in China, what did you find anything, inspiring? Did you think, oh my gosh, I need to take this kind of a work ethic back to Africa? What was your experience like? Living in China.
Yeah, I think the most inspiring thing about being there, especially at the young age that I was at, and at that time, was seeing an economy go from very little to the second largest in the world, and the most rapidly growing in such a short space of time. Those guys, they have a plan, and they stick to it, and it's long term, and it's not about any individual. It's about the whole country, and the unison that they have is something that Africa can learn from.
Amazing.
The oneness, and they're really, really just fixed and fixated on becoming the best in the world in what they do, making sure the economy becomes the best. and they won't stop at anything, and because of that, like to the smallest of things, from basically where the government tells people to value education, which obviously, I mean, every government tells people to value education, to the government saying we see that our population over time is consuming much more pork or meat than it should, so they're just encouraging people to maybe have 1 day without red meat, things like that. That's how seriously they take it.
Wow.
Like every little thing, and coming from a place where and I don't want to sound bad, but coming from a place where we'd probably think the government is being ridiculous, telling us to eat less meat.
Yeah. It's a mindset, isn't it?
It makes you think.
Yeah.
It's a mindset. It makes you think, because then I remember the first time I just thought this is absolutely ridiculous. Whether is the government now gonna dictate our diet? But then I just thought to myself that that's the mindset that I have. That we don't have that unity. We don't view government the way they view it. We don't view the oneness that the way they view it. They I took it negatively. They took it as the government trying to make sure that they have a longer lifespan, which makes obviously more productivity, which means that the economy grows even further. And so that, I mean, yeah, you see what I mean. So
yeah,
and this it really changed my paradigm of how we look at things. And besides, I mean, the work ethic and things like that, I mean, a lot of people know about that. But just the unison, the oneness.
Yeah, the oneness.
Despite,
I mean,
and despite the fact that they're very diverse. I don't know if, like, a lot of people don't know this, but I mean, China's got like 54 different dialects.
Wow. Okay, that's something new to me. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, and these dialects are like basically like different languages. I mean, they call them dialects, but they're like different languages. As in, a dialect you can maybe hear what the person is saying and stuff. This one is you can't. But with all this diversity that they have, they've been able to unite. And Mandarin in Chinese, the proper word for Mandarin is Putonghua, and Putonghua just basically translates to, or not basically, directly translates to common tongue, or common words. So basically that's it, and that's where it starts from, where they say, we might be diverse, but we're not going to use our diversity as a tool for negativity. It's going to bring us together, that even though we're diverse, we can still come together for a common cause, for a common objective, and achieve it together.
Amazing.
And yeah, that's something we can all learn from, not just Africa, but the whole world.
Fantastic. Okay, on that note, we're going to take a short break and be back on the other side to find out more about opportunities and business, in doing business in Africa. I'm quite excited, already inspired. The oneness, the spirit of oneness is the way forward. Stay locked on, stay locked in. It's your host, Double9, with our amazing guest today, who is a visionary and a business expert. Stay locked on. You don't want to miss the other side of this show.
Awesome.
Back, it's Double9Radio. It's 1854, 1405, 2021, with our amazing guest this evening, who has been sharing some great insights about doing business in Africa and also opportunities as well, is Mr. Kabalano, amazing individual as well. He also talked about, here's a smokescreen, there's challenges everywhere in the world, so never be put off on doing business. Just before the break, we were talking about, his time in China, and he said, what I took away from China while I was there for about 9 years is watching a country, a country economy which was like almost an average type of economy, move into the second best economy in the world. And how did they do that? The oneness spirit. They came together and decided, we all want to do this. Everybody in the country did their bit. Imagine if all the African countries within the African continent came together and decided, we want to make Africa the best continent in the entire world. That would be an amazing thing to happen. Hopefully it does happen in our lifetime. Okay, all right, let's talk about China. Kabalano, let's talk about China.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear a lot of Chinese investments in different African countries. Everywhere you go, we talk about China's here, China's there, doing great things, investments in there. What role do you think China plays in Africa's economic development?
Yeah. And I don't want to be controversial, but I will definitely be candid and honest about this. I think they play both a positive and a negative role in the development. But most importantly, I think both that negative and that positive are necessary for the trajectory that Africa is going into. Because, just for example, you get countries where China brings in a lot of good development in terms of infrastructure. I remember back then when I think I was doing my MBA in China, and we do a lot of research and stuff on Chinese development, on Chinese aided development in Africa, and I remember seeing an interview of some government worker in Kenya who lived outside on the outskirts of Nairobi, and he said, I've been living in this village all my life. It's like a little village on the outskirts of Nairobi. I've been living in it all my life, and I've been going to town on this dirt road all my life. And he's maybe in his 40s, and he's like up until people used to come here. We used to get a lot of investors. We used to get a lot of countries, bringing FDI from different parts of the world. Only up until the Chinese came did this dirt road that I always used to go from my village to town become tar, as in just tarred, and he was just showing the impact that they brought a significant impact in terms of infrastructure development into the country. But at the same time, there's a lot of credit terms that come with the infrastructure development that some is unfair, some is not properly given the due diligence by the beneficiary country. And that in itself is a lesson for African countries and African governments, because that could happen from anyone, by anyone, or by any country, and that's something that we have to be vigilant. We have to be vigilant against. We have to learn from and say that when discussing or when negotiating infrastructure projects or credit terms, not just with China, with other funding institutions like the IMF, we need to do our proper due diligence. But then, how do you do it if you don't have, the skill and the specialized manpower? And this is why I really encourage, every young person, and that's why I say, being a lifelong learner, it really makes things easier, not just for you, for your family, for your community, for your village, for your town, your city, your country. And that's another good thing about China. They really, really value education, and because as they say, education is elevation. So like kids in China, just typical primary school kids, go to school from Monday to Friday, like proper school, and then Saturday and Sunday they go to what they call extracurricular school, and it's like a school. So if maybe, for example, the parent wants them to learn French and learn the violin, it's not a hobby where they do it after school like us, maybe from 3 to 4. They do it on a Saturday and a Sunday like proper school. They do it all throughout the year. If they want to, they want them to be like a French major, or they want them to be an Olympic swimmer, they do it like proper school.
So the discipline is instilled into the children, from a younger age, so it kind of grows
from a very young age.
Yeah, but I want to touch on a point before. Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to touch on a point you made, which is very valid. It's a great point, where you mentioned about the kind of deals that China signs with some African countries in return for some infrastructure development. Why do you think this deals that are being signed? I know they're unfair, but why do we think why do you think the Chinese get away with such unfair type of agreements without being challenged by other government departments within the country?
Yeah, well, I think for a definite number of reasons, and we can name quite a few of them. But I think the main reason is because there's that, cost benefit thing that they look at, that governments look at, and that's another thing. It's a really like a structural challenge that we have in Africa. I think our governance system is definitely borrowed and taken from somewhere else. It's not ours originally, and because of that, we haven't perfected it. It's come with its flaws. And, when something comes with flaws that you've taken from somewhere else, it never works out perfectly.
Yeah.
And just to give you an example, like the cost benefits. I mean, imagine a government that's just a democratic government that's going to be in power for 4 years and they have to perform in 4 years and show that they're doing something for the people. And, they go into these deals hastily because they don't do their due diligence, because, they're looking at, making sure that they get the objectives done in 4 years. And, the terms might not look good on paper, but then they think, to get another 4 years, we need to make sure that we're showing development here. And they look at that short-term perspective on it. Funny thing, and here's the worst part. The worst part is that, the Chinese government knows this, and other people know this. I remember when I was doing my MBA, a Chinese friend of mine used to, really, really, like, he's a good friend of mine, so he used to, like, really make fun of us. He'd be like, the problem with you guys is that, every 4 years you're spending on elections, but you're not spending on the policy. You don't think that, you elect new leaders and then they'll start their own policies, their own objectives, and then that other old leader who had his objectives and policies are just thrown out the window. And then at the end of 40 years, you've had, 10 different administrations over 4 years, but nothing concrete has been accomplished.
I mean, it's never a joke.
And that was true.
It's never a joke, but that's reality. That's a sad reality.
The way he put it, the way he put it when we started, he's like, because we were teasing them, we were just like, but you guys are democratic, and we were democratically leading to the leaders. And then he's like, but at least we don't waste money in elections. And that's where it started. But you see, that's the underlying thing of it, it started as a joke, but it was very, very true. It was very, very true. Our governance system over the long term does not really work for the continent. But this is something that we all know, and this is something that, the onus is on us, the responsibility is on us to say, no, wait a minute, things aren't working out. Let's now try find something that works for us, that's done by us.
Amazing.
And until we do that, it'll just be an endless loop. Like leadership everywhere is what drives objectives to be done in organizations, in communities, in countries, and this is why I say that the negatives and the positives of the way the Chinese do stuff. And here's a good example in leadership. Okay. When a child is born, in China, they open a file, like a file, like how you go to ask for employment at any organization. They've got a file that they open for you and stuff, and then and then they do appraisals and stuff. Same thing, they do appraisals on the child, the marks, this and that, whether they do well in school, whether they have fights, whether they're suspended, whether up until the end of varsity, where then they say, okay, but this is what he's been doing, this is the trajectory. We can then shortlist him for a leadership role in this department or in this private. And that's how most Chinese leaders are chosen, because they're looked at over a long period of time. And we can look at this with the perspective that, but that's just micromanaging people. That's just the big brother effect, where you're always watching people, and it's not a good thing. There's no privacy and things like that. But then the other perspective that you can look at it is that in order to be able to drive economies, drive societies, drive the people to greater heights, you need to be able to groom and get leaders from grassroots level from birth to make sure that they get they drive and
you're quite right, and I agree with the point you've made. But my mind shifts to the fact of saying that, China found a solution. They found a solution that works for them to nurture the talents and nurture the ambition and bring into reality. Maybe Africa needs to find our own solution to make sure we get to that challenge. Because Again,
I agree with you 100%.
Because you made a very valid point earlier as well about we copied democracy from a different. It's alien in a way to the African culture.
Yeah.
But we try to adopt it somehow. It's not really working. But now we're looking at China. But if we adopt the China way, does it mean that we're going to have the same outcome of it? Maybe.
I don't think we should adopt the China way at all. And I wouldn't agree to that. I think we should just be able to learn from the lessons that you make a solution that works for you and you make it from the ground up. That's one thing that us as Africans need to do. We're really a creative people, and we just don't use the potential, to be able to say, in the creativity and the creative spark that we have, let's be creative when it comes to leadership actions. Let's be creative when it comes to organizational diversity in communities, in families, in upbringing of children. If we do that, we'll definitely be able to find solutions that work for us. Amazing. And by us.
Amazing. Okay, let's talk about a bit of a positive side now, because I know some African countries are making, some inroads in development and paying attention to infrastructure development as well, and also improving on economic development as well. But from your point of view, what are the African countries we should be paying attention or close attention to right now?
Yeah, that's a bit of a loaded one. I think there's quite a lot of African countries that are really, really making it. I mean, the obvious right now, you have your Rwandas, your Kenya making it. But then a lot of people don't see the potential that Uganda has. And, I've seen awesome startups coming out from Uganda. And despite the political climate, I mean, we know the election that they had last year. And despite the turbulence and the political climate that they have, these startups and these businesses still thrive. Still thrive. Better than some startups that you get in Botswana, South Africa. And obviously when you're doing business in such a tough and uncertain and volatile environment, it just shows the resilience, the persistence that you have. So these are the countries where people overlook. Mainly because of political instability. Countries like Ethiopia, countries like Tanzania, we're getting startups from there that are definitely going to make it. There's one startup in Uganda called Rocket Health, and these guys are they're a medical telemedicine startup, and they're really making strides. They're partnering with insurance companies, I met the founder. We went for training at the Alibaba headquarters in 2019, and I met the founder. And the guy was looking for funding, and even till now he's still looking for Series A or for seed funding. But that doesn't stop him. They're still making inroads. They're still making strides. They're still growing, and that in itself just shows the resilience of African startups. Amazing. So that's a country that really, really stood out for me. I think another country that also stands out is Morocco. And a lot of people in the first world know that Morocco, is kind of a country that's really, really on an onwards trajectory. I think from Southern Africa, we kind of don't know that much because they're on the other side of the continent, but I was blessed enough, to meet a few Moroccans. But even before that, USAID, there's Prosper Africa. Prosper Africa is the USAID arm that helps in U.S. investments in Africa, and that HQ is in Morocco. And that just says a lot.
It does.
Before anything else, yeah.
Amazing.
Before anything else.
I mean, but do you agree with the statement that Africa doesn't need a charity? It needs good leadership.
Definitely. I fully agree. We used to have these long debates that would go overnight back in during my master's and during my MBA. And we used to call them the Dambisa Moyo debates. I don't know if you know Dambisa Moyo. She's an author and a journalist who basically believes in that the charity that Africa is getting is holding Africa back. She's written a book called Dead Aid. It's quite an intriguing book that says that. And having said that, her stance has really gotten her into trouble. I know there's a time when she, had a back and forth with Bill Gates over that. But then it makes you think, as you said, it makes you think that we really think,
because
other continents are helping us, but then maybe that's what's stifling the progress.
I know, but look at this.
I think it's a thin line.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. But look at what we just uncovered today, right?
Yeah.
We have a country like China coming to Africa to provide certain infrastructure development and signing, agreements to get paid in some different unfair ways, right? So there's high prospects in a country where you're willing to carry out infrastructure development without getting paid, but there's still other countries giving aid to Africa and not actually working on the prospects they have to increase the wealth within the nation, if that makes sense. Do you understand what I'm saying there? Because it's quite, it's like there is something, saying, what, leadership doesn't exist. Take the opportunity to go in there, do as you wish, and come out and just use charity to give them a form of, I don't know. It's quite confusing.
Very true. And it all boils down to the lack of the long-term perspective, having a lack of, seeing things in the long view, going in it for the long haul. And it's a system, it's a system that, as I said, as you said, you actually, rightfully said, it's a system that we borrowed from somewhere else, and because of that, it doesn't really factor in the long term. And because of that, I remember we had a guest lecturer who once showed us some graphs of Africa over the 50 years, and he said, it's very difficult, and this was, I think, from the 80s to, I think, the 90s or something, and he's like, it's very, very difficult to draw this line by free hand because it's so straight, and that's the thing, because there's no long-term perspective, or there was no long-term perspective or long-term thinking. You'd get an administration that has their own goals and perspectives. They don't achieve them in the short time that they're in, and then they go out and then the next one comes in. But having said that, a lot of African countries and a lot of pockets in Africa here and there have seen the need to start thinking long term in different industries, start thinking long term in terms of leadership, in terms of education, in terms of mentorship, and because of that, things are really, really changing.
Fantastic, great to hear. Let's look at young people. Young people nowadays, because you mentioned young people, we do need them to start stepping up to the play, stepping up and doing certain things. But do you think Africa's young people should be turned into entrepreneurship?
I really think so. And it might sound like a blanket statement, and I think every young person should at least have that zeal or that spirit to try entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship doesn't mean you have to have a business. It just means finding an opportunity, finding a market gap, solving a problem, solving a challenge, and making people's lives better in the process. That's all it takes. A good example is in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is one of the smallest places with one of the highest GDP per capita in the world. The streets of Hong Kong are like the buildings, the streets between the buildings are so narrow, that you walk and you behold them because it's a small place. But the GDP is just crazy because everybody in Hong Kong thinks with an entrepreneurial mindset. And the entrepreneurial mindset, it doesn't necessarily translate to commercial activity, but it translates to solving problems, making the life easier, solving community problems, solving environmental problems, because they live in an island and the population is huge there, and because of that, they've really thrived for quite a long time, and I think maybe they've done it because of the the history and the geographical history in terms of them being a halfway port for a lot of shipments.
Amazing.
But having said that, I mean it's a mindset.
It is.
It's a mindset. I always say to guys here in Botswana that
because we see a lot.
It needs to change. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we do have a handful of youth who have this entrepreneurial spirit and want to do it, but the number needs to increase. It needs to increase because there's a lot of talents, in Africa, but you can't wait for the government. You have to make your own way because, again, we mentioned earlier, leadership seems to be, a problem across most African countries. But hopefully that will change. But, share with us, your journey, from where you are now, to where you, should I say, before you get to where you are now, where you're quite comfortable, you're still working hard, as you mentioned, you keep learning and still trying to find solutions to things. But what kind of challenges, did you come across, on your journey?
Oh man, they were huge. They're huge, but I don't know. I guess as human beings, you always look at personal challenges before you look at business challenges, and hey, I had a lot of personal challenges when going to China because you're in a new place, and you don't speak the language, you don't know the people, and everything is new. There's that culture shock, but when you're able to overcome things like that, then the sky's the limit. Then you come to challenges now, and then you just remember the challenges you went through back then, and then the challenges now just seem little, seem very little in comparison.
Amazing.
I remember this one time in what was this in a place called Kunming. I was trying to travel to go to like a friend's city, and I kind of got on the wrong train, and I still new in China, and This was like one of these holidays where and I remember getting on the wrong train, and then I got on the wrong train. I don't know, I think I was rushing for it. I got on the wrong train. I'd left some bag in the train station. I didn't know the language, and I was the only one there.
Amazing. It must have been.
And then they're like, yeah, and then I remember saying, I just have to make it work, to find my way back.
Of course. Amazing.
And then I remember getting to that city the next morning after, solving everything, and, my friends were like, dude, what was going on? And, that time I couldn't even, to speak the language to buy airtime on my phone to be able to call them. So I just had to make it work somehow.
Amazing.
So you go through personal problems like that and uphill challenges like that, and then you then think to yourself, but if you've gone through that, then what's going to phase you?
Amazing. I mean, if you could look back and say, I want to give myself, my younger self an advice. What advice would that be?
I really wish I believed in myself more. I think that's another thing about. I don't know if it's the same in other cultures, but the general African culture doesn't really and make kids believe in themselves at a young age, And I don't think it's and I've seen it throughout because, as I say, Africa is very diverse. Cultures are different, but those are things that you see throughout various different African cultures, and if we taught our children to believe in themselves, that they could do anything that they want to do from a very, very young age, they can achieve much, much more.
You're quite right.
I really wish. I really believe, if I believe in myself, I'll be much, much further than I am now.
Fantastic.
But it's never too late. It's never too late.
It's never too late.
And I always say,
yes, always.
Yeah, and people always say, but you see all these motivations on the internet and they're a bit too much. And I never think that too much. I think we all need to get to a point where we motivate ourselves, and it's not easy. It's not easy, and that's why we have all these things every single day, that we see on these motivation quotes on your Instagram or on your social media. And I think they're necessary. And as a human being, To get intrinsic, sometimes you need to get extrinsic, stimulants like this, where you at least then you get to a point where you can then motivate yourself every day. I really, really believe in willpower. I really believe in mental agility, mental strength, but that doesn't come overnight. It's something that we build. But then, having said that, it's a lesson for us now that the generation to come, we should make sure they have that springboard much, much earlier, even from birth. They should have that springboard that we didn't have. And I think that would be the biggest gift we'd give to them, to know that, to teach them from a young age to believe in themselves, before anything else.
Amazing. Kabalano, it's been amazing to have you on the show. I've had such an amazing time. But before you go, I want to know, tell us a fun fact about yourself that no one knows. Exclusively live on Double9Radio. We're going to check this. We're going to verify this.
Fun fact. So, lately, I don't know. I can't even watch, you try to relax and you try to, now we're in lockdown, so the only thing to do is to Netflix or, watch something on TV. I haven't lasted through a movie, and I don't know how long. I think the first 20, 30 minutes, I'm gone. I like lights.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I like lights, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Like the other day, I was just actually talking to a friend of mine. I'm like, hey, I actually just pay for this because, I've got to be an old son and fiance, and I say that because they watch it. But I just fall asleep all the time. I just pass out.
Amazing. Okay, thank you for sharing that.
So you can verify that with her.
We can verify that. We will. You never know. But Kabalano, it's been amazing to have you on the show. I had such a great time and great insight into the African market and African development as well. I think Africa is a place to be. Africa is a place to go. And I wish Africa all unite at one point and recognize the power and the prospects in making the continent great as well. It's been amazing. It's been great. I look forward to hearing great, marvelous things about what you're doing and yourself in the very near future. Once again, I want to say thank you for coming on the show this evening. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very, very much for having me. It's been an absolute honor. Please keep doing what you're doing. This is an inspiration to many, and we'll definitely keep on supporting this platform.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
And I'll speak to you soon.